Welcome back to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. My name is Victoria Dickerson, and I'm joined by co-host Jeff Ameriine. Jeff, how are you?
I'm great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're joined by Mo Elliott. He's the founder of Fayettechill and has since moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and is doing some commercial real estate and short-term rentals with the Pecos Group, which he owns. Mo, how are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So I know that you've been on the show previously, and so this will really just be a recap of everything that you've done the past 5 years since you've been on. So give us a origin story, how you got here, how you got into Fayettechill, then sold it and moved on. And so just kind of give us the brief overview.
Yeah. So I was U of A student studying at the business school. And I was moved from Dallas, go to school there, and started getting into fly fishing, a little bit of mountain biking, just kind of exploring the Ozarks, the Ouachitas, and I'd go into Pack Rat and Lewis and Clark, and I just noticed there wasn't a local brand kind of representing the area, and so that's really what kicked it off, and me building that, and started with Made in USA, recycled organic cotton, t-shirts, hats, kind of just basic products. And so we started with a website, started with some local retailers, and it really just grew from there. And then it evolved into us creating outerwear and a lot more technical apparel and cut and sew. But yeah, sold the brand after 13 years running it. We moved to Santa Fe in February of 2020, not knowing everything that was going to happen. So
the storm was about to hit.
Yeah. And it's set, with retail and having wholesale and online and managing our own distribution with our warehouse, after 2 years being away from that, it's hands-on. And so it was, business climate with low interest rates, us just excelling our e-commerce. The timing was just right. I think it was, partially me moving, but also, I felt like I did everything that I set out to do and more. I mean, never thought that would be my full-time gig a decade after I graduated. But yeah, I felt like I did everything I could. I didn't necessarily want to get back into apparel. I think with COVID, not owning your own supply chain, it was just scary. Like we were at the whim of factories and constantly closing, and we buy all of our fabric, we design all of our trim, so it's not like we control every little piece of the manufacturing, and if your tags can't come in, then you can't manufacture. I mean, so it's like the smallest things, and just kept hitting roadblocks. And it was partially that, but also a strong business climate, where I sold to Gearhead Outfitters eventually, local outdoor retailer in Mid-South region, Midwest. But yeah, now doing short-term rental real estate in Santa Fe, kind of capitalizing on the tourist market here. And yeah, I knew I wanted to do real estate, but I didn't know, are we going to do like fix and flips? Do I want to buy multifamily? And my wife's an amazing designer and can interior designer, and can source unique things for our units. And also she ran our retail store. So it was this kind of, I wanted that creative aspect of, almost kind of a crossover from retail, where, all the senses, when you walk into our retail store, we focus on those things, the visuals. And I think with Airbnbs, you can make more money than long-term rentals, but it also played into our strengths as a team to make it happen. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. We have 10 units that we're getting live in June. So we haven't got up and running just yet, but yeah, all the operations that I learned over the years, just starting it as a business from the get-go, brought on a virtual assistant that worked for Airbnb. So yeah, it's so far so good. No surprises from the construction process.
What, question is a follow-up. So you had that 13-year run in apparel and running retail locations and selling online. How would you contrast how you felt about all that with how you're feeling about what you're doing now? I mean, does the business feel any different, even though I know it's radically different? When you wake up in the morning,
yeah,
what are you thinking about now versus when you were running the Fayettechill?
What I love about real estate's when you make the purchase and it's a tangible asset in front of you and you can control everything. With manufacturing, it's rough. I mean, we're buying 50,000 units 12 months in advance. We have data to understand what we sold last season, but it's just such a question mark with manufacturing, and it's always changing. I mean, every 3 months we would have new products, and so you have to look into future of trends, and maybe you were off that season and you have a couple thousand products you're having to heavily discount. And that, I always make the example of when you walk into a nice steak restaurant, you're not seeing the fillets 50% off because they bought too much. Right. And apparel is just train the customers in a lot of ways that at the end of the season, you can always get a discount. And so I think, you can combat that with domestic manufacturing or made to order. There's ways to get around that. But yeah, I think with real estate, at least the short term side, it's high margin and you can control everything in front of you. I mean, if there's no supply chains really collapsing where you can't do your business. And so, yeah, and I think, the uneasiness of buying all these products so far in advance kind of wears on you after.
Sure.
Sure.
But yeah, you just have to keep innovating, and that's what we did. I mean, we were just adding new products in the mix where we saw demand. I mean, one of the last product lines that would just boom for us were these palm fiber straw hats. I mean, I would always see like the cheapo, like Quicksilver, $20, or you had something really high end. And what we ended up doing, something in the middle, really lasted a long time. And then we were taking like cool Stetson shapes that you'd find, I guess, what would it be, like a felt or beaver or something, but we would do that with straw. So that was a, example of just seeing a product that didn't have options in the market, and, we ran with it. But like that supply chain collapsed during COVID. We couldn't get the palm from Mexico. But yeah, back to your question, I enjoy kind of having all the processes and all the steps just right in front of us and being able to control that. And two, it's once you get units up and running, I mean, it's your cleaners and your maintenance are key, and the communication with your guests. But it's not every 3 months I'm having to renovate and redo what I did.
Right.
That's true.
And what's magic about Santa Fe? I mean, it's a great area, but sell our audience on on Santa Fe and why you picked that area.
You remember my wife or my girlfriend at the time, we did that van trip.
Right, I do.
And so we went to all these mountain towns, surf towns across North America, and we had a list of, where we might want to be, and some of those were unrealistic, like a Big Sur or a Telluride. But I grew up coming to Santa Fe. I have family in El Paso, and it was partially where I could mountain bike and ski same day. It sits about 7,000 feet, but you can get up high in the mountains, but you're just not in a freezer box all winter. And so, yeah, it's high elevation desert, but also the cultural aspect, the history here. It's one of the oldest cities in America. Yeah, it's super unique. It's almost European feeling. But yeah, the cultural with me being able to do all my mountain sports was huge.
Good food scene and good art there as well, right?
Yeah, it's third largest art market behind New York and LA.
Wow. That's awesome. Does the so you were just talking about, finding the trends both with retail with Fayettechill, and your wife is into the interior design. Like, does that still, the creative aspect, like, does that translate to still finding what looks good and feels good for your short-term rentals? Like, what is that creative process like for you guys?
Yeah, so we kind of she starts with a theme for each unit, and kind of just maybe she finds one piece that is the color palette that's kind of just applied throughout. And let me close this door real quick so you don't hear a table saw going. So yeah, we kind of doing themes for each one. I mean, keeping it within somewhat of Santa Fe style. We have another property that we're inspired by this local artist called Alexander Gerard. And so it's not just the typical Santa Fe style. So, but yeah, I think kind of starting with a main piece or one kind of source of inspiration and just flowing from that.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead, Victoria.
Well, it's kind of changing topics, so if you were on the same topic, then go for it.
No, keep going.
Okay, well, so Mo, I was curious about going back to Fayettechill. How did you establish yourself in the market as like just the coolest outdoor brand in Northwest Arkansas? Because I was a University of Arkansas student. Everybody, all of the cool kids wore Fayettechill. It was like the clothing to own and wear. And so I was wondering, how did you establish yourself with that reputation in Northwest Arkansas?
I think, art was always a core piece of our design. It wasn't just slapping our logo with some variations. I was just always inspired by art that I would think I could kind of turn into some variation of a Ozark landscape. Our first landscape design was just kind of a redo of like Starry Night. But yeah, I think the art component, and I built it with all the ideals of like a little Patagonia. And so having that as like a North Star of our ideals, and then eventually just creating product that I wanted to use outside, and then the employees that worked for us. So it was, we were our own kind of test dummies on the product and what we wanted. So it wasn't like we were designing for another core market that we weren't a part of. And I think just the timing of, if I started it in the 90s or something, there wouldn't be the mountain bike scene. There was just all this stuff happening in Northwest Arkansas that helped us sell that Ozark sub variation of the brand, where it allowed us to constantly just do our photo shoots in our backyard and not have to go elsewhere. So I think it was a lot of external factors that really helped drive the brand, but at the end of the day, we were just designing for ourselves.
What comes next, Mo? You've had the successful run in the apparel and the retail and the outdoor experience brand. Now you've got you're building a wide variety of Airbnbs in Santa Fe. What's the big plan? Where are you going to go with this one?
I mean, I think build these Airbnbs where it's a business in itself, but having virtual assistants, outsourcing certain things where the processes are just streamlined, that, I can have that freedom as much as possible to be with family, be outside. With technology now, these Airbnbs, it's a consistent A to Z operational process. Guests check in, everything needs to be clean, and they check out, and you can use technology to really help with that. It's not this old style, leave a key under the mat, text me when it's there's so much that I guess that business has just boomed, and there's so many kind of third-party apps and technology that just makes it super efficient. But what's next? I just think keep growing the portfolio. We're looking for, what I'm buying is mostly commercial. Just so if you buy a single family Airbnb and you want to refinance it, well, that appraisal is based on the comps of what other things have sold for. With commercial property, I can send them a P&L and grow my value of the property based on that, also with appreciation. So that's enticing. But I think continue to look for property in Santa Fe that just has that wow factor, 5 to 10 unit properties. It's almost creating a little boutique hotel is my mindset with these properties, because the steps of buying a single family home, from acquiring it to operations, you can translate that to say an 8 unit property, and it's the same steps. I can have in-house cleaning, commercial washer and dryer on site. And so also with that little boutique hotel is I'm adding these branding elements. I'm naming all the properties, having logos, having, just all those little things that separate us from someone just doing a single family Airbnb.
Sure.
And so, we're Santa Fe is a drivable market for Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Colorado. And also the value of having Airbnbs with little kitchenettes. We're not buying just rooms and putting a bed. And so I think the value of, like, even in a downturn, people can still drive for vacation, and rather than eating out every meal, they can cook in the units. We're not having to pay for valet, all those things with a hotel. But yeah, I think continue to buy property and build a portfolio, and get these properties up and running, get financials to where we see it, cash out refinance, and just keep the ball rolling. But here in the San Juans are kind of our focus market.
So you'd continue to build in and around Santa Fe, and then maybe find other similar places that are on the outskirts or still have the same kind of vibe and attract. Yeah.
The kind of mountain towns for right now.
Yeah.
But you need to have, boots on the ground. I've been at the properties for 4 months now with our 5-man crew, and we have an internal cleaners that we're going to be using, and then you have to set up your maintenance. And so if you go into a market that you don't have any connections, that can kind of be scary. So you really need to have all that in a market that you go into, or you can have someone else manage it, but your margins vastly reduced.
And you've been able to find the talent that you need and the partnering so that you feel comfortable about all those operational aspects.
Yeah, and I've done some house flips here in Santa Fe, and so I was able to build a crew with that and have some connections. So started small, but yeah, we've put together a good team.
Yeah, it's great. You're still in touch. It's hard to believe it's been 13 years. I was trying to think. I think you were in class in 2009, 10 time frame. It's kind of the same time when Ryan Frazier and that whole crew was sort of growing up. Do you stay in touch with any of that old gang from those days? Are you still pretty tight with some of them?
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up. I was messaging Ryan like a month ago, just kind of laughing that, oh, we're both in real estate now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've kept up with quite a bit of guys. Yeah, and for a bit, running Fayettechill, being away. I mean, I was in town every 3 months, or I'd have team members come out here.
Sure.
And then my brother-in-law is still there, so I haven't been back since last fall, just with all the construction here. But I do miss a spring buffalo float this time of year.
Yeah, understood. Well, one of the ways we like to land the plane, as you may recall, and you now have this sort of wealth of experience in running two really different kind of businesses. If you could take all that accumulated wisdom you have now and go back to when you were early 20 something and thinking about launching Fayettechill, what would you tell your younger self? What kind of advice would you give?
Wow. Buy real estate younger.
Right. That's good advice.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen what Zweig did with all the renovations in historic district. Yeah, I guess being able to kind of do the real estate on the side while we were growing that business. Cause I mean, we got to that $1 million mark pretty quick.
Yeah.
And being in my early 20s, it was like I was playing a lot. Mm-hmm. So maybe doing the real estate on the side would have been a good move. I guess probably gotten with some designer or done some kind of internship from someone in the outdoor apparel space. I mean, it took us a good bit to do our own cut and sew the right way. And it took us a while to get those factories that were super solid. I mean, I was able to pick a lot of the factories based on Patagonia's transparency, where you could just go on their website and see they make this product, this factory. But yeah, I think, since I have the business background, but I didn't have the manufacturing textiles background. So I think it would have been huge for me to, spend 3 months, interning or something like that, just where I was sped at a learning curve a little bit faster.
Gotcha. Well, listen, where can our audience find out more about your Airbnb operation? I'm sure there's lots of people that are outdoor enthusiasts and they love Santa Fe. What's the best way for them to find out about you?
We'll have direct booking sites for the 2 properties right now. One of them is called doshermanascompound.com. And then we have another property called Tasuki Outpost. And so it's TasukiOutpost.com. And that's where we'll have our direct booking site, but mostly using Airbnb because that's where a lot of traffic's driven through. Instagram's Elliot Mo. Find me on there and message me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And then, I mean, we have a placeholder, the pecosgroup.com, but that's just the holding company. So it's not really anything to see there. But yeah, I would say Instagram is probably where you can get a hold of me the easiest.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for coming on. Congratulations on all the success.
Thank you.
It seems like you and your wife and your family are living your best life. So congratulations on all of it. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. It's good seeing you, Jeff.
Thanks, Mo.
You too. Take it easy.
Thank you. Bye.
Ecosystem builders, entrepreneurs, chambers of commerce, mayors. If you're interested in taking your economic future into your own hands, we've got a book that can help you. Creating Startup Junkies, Building Sustainable Venture Ecosystems in Unexpected Places is the guide. It's a little bit inspiration. It's a little bit toolkit. What it will allow you to do is take your economic future into your own hands and build a sustainable small business, innovation, and entrepreneurial ecosystem in your backyard. If you'd like to hear more, check out creatingstartupjunkies.com. The Startup Junkie podcast reaches over 100 countries and has had over 100,000 downloads. If you're interested in reaching some of the most motivated and engaged innovators and entrepreneurs on a worldwide basis, give us a shout.